It seems like you've chosen a film that's definitely not for the faint of heart. I Will Never Leave You Alone, 2023, is not just another horror flick with supernatural forces and ghosts. This is a movie that chills to the bone with its atmosphere of guilt, fear, and regret. So, get ready, because what follows is a full story about this cinematic masterpiece. Let's start with the main character, Richard, whose face likely conveys the same emotion throughout the entire film: torment and deep depression. Richard, brilliantly portrayed by Kenneth Trujillo, is a former inmate released early for good behavior. 6 years ago, he landed behind bars for manslaughter, but it's not about breaking the law. His real punishment is the inner demons he can't escape. So freedom doesn't offer him a new chance at life, but rather a new confinement in a haunted house. Now, here's a question for you. Have you ever been offered to spend 6 nights in a haunted house just to avoid going back to prison? Yeah, not the best choice. Richard is a man of mystery, and now his life takes another dark turn. On one hand, he served his time, but on the other, this house becomes a new prison for his tormented soul. Who would have thought that something worse than prison bars awaited him on the outside? As we enter the house with Richard, we quickly realize something is definitely off. The house seems to breathe pain and suffering, and within minutes, you're convinced it's better left abandoned. But our hero can't escape so easily. He has a choice between this grim house and returning to prison. And it raises the question, maybe prison wasn't such a bad option after all? Richard has to spend 6 nights here, trapped with both ghosts and his own demons. He needs to light 6 candles and hope it will cleanse the house of evil spirits. Sounds simple, but this is a horror movie, so nothing is ever that easy. Instead of a standard exorcism, we're in for something deeper: the hero's inner journey, which turns out to be more terrifying than any ghost. Oh, and here's the sweet part: the ghosts. At the heart of the story is a sinister witch ghost who has haunted this house for many years. And this witch is not just the pale woman in a white dress we're used to seeing in typical horror films. She's a much more complex character, almost a reflection of Richard himself. Both are haunted by the past, and it seems they're each seeking some kind of redemption. The witch doesn't just scare. She forces Richard to relive his horrifying memories over and over. As if terrifying him to death wasn't enough, she pulls out everything he's tried to forget. This definitely adds a unique depth to the film. It's part psychological thriller, part classic horror, all rolled into one. The main theme of the film is, of course, guilt. Richard was imprisoned for manslaughter, but the real issue is that he can't forgive himself. And the house, filled with spirits and ghosts, becomes a symbol of his inner struggle. You could say he's not just battling external threats, but also his own mind. Richard realizes that part of his soul is still stuck in the past, with his wife and child. And this is where the film fully unfolds. With each new scene, we see more flashbacks, revealing how horrifying his life was before prison. His wife, Emma, suffered from postpartum depression, and Richard himself was an alcoholic. And here's where the real horror begins. No ghost is scarier than the mistakes and losses that can never be undone. Kenneth Trujillo's performance deserves special mention. Imagine this: a character who doesn't utter a single word throughout the film. How can someone act without words? But Trujillo pulls it off masterfully. His face, his movements, his gaze, all of it conveys such a storm of emotions that words really aren't necessary. Every scene with Richard could be dissected because every movement speaks to his suffering and inner struggle. He doesn't try to fight the ghosts. He accepts them as part of his punishment. This is an incredibly powerful move, turning him into a true tragic hero. Now let's talk about the atmosphere. Yes, horror films aren't just about scary scenes and monsters. They're also about the right setting. And here, Medoff nails it 100%. The house where the action takes place is terrifying in itself, even when nothing much is happening. Shadows, silence, and the sense of something being terribly wrong permeate every shot. Watching this film, you start to feel the atmosphere pressing down on you. Even when nothing particularly scary is happening on screen, you're still on edge because the feeling of dread never lets up. This is one of those films that keeps you tense, not with cheap tricks, but with real psychological fear. No spoilers, but I'll say this. The ending leaves you with a lot of questions. This isn't the kind of movie where all the answers are handed to you on a silver platter. Much is left unsaid, and it's up to the viewer to piece together what really happened to Richard and the witch. This only enhances the film's impact, making you want to watch it again and again. I Will Never Leave You Alone is a film that blends deep psychological drama with classic horror. It's a story about guilt, regret, and redemption, leaving a lasting mark on your soul. If you enjoy films that make you think and keep you up at night, this one's definitely for you. So if you decide to spend an evening with this movie, don't forget to leave a light on in the hallway, just in case the witch decides to pay you a visit.